Hello, my name is Entrice McCoy, and today I'll be doing my pioneer presentation of Paulo Freire. His theories was critical pedagogy, conscientization, problem posing education. And here's a picture of Paulo Freire. Today we'll be talking about his early life, his professional and personal life, his career as an education psychologist, his theories, people that inspired him, and then how he believed that teachers should act, and then his later life. So starting off with his early life, Paulo Freire was born September the 19th in 1921, Recife, Brazil. His early life grew up during the Great Depression, experienced poverty, shaping his views on oppression. His parents, his father was Joaquim Tessalowski Freire, which was a police officer. His mother was Eltruz Neves Freire, a housewife. His hometown was Recife, a coastal city with high inequality. And then here's a picture when he was 10 years old, riding on his bicycle. His early professional and personal life. Education, he studied law, philosophy, and psychology at the University of Recife. He married Elza Mia Costa Oliveira in 1944, and they had 5 children. His early employment, he worked as a lawyer, but transitioned over to education. Early activism began literacy programs for the poor in Brazil. His career is an educational psychologist. Employment, he was the director of the Department of Education and Culture in Recife. He worked in child after political Excel in 1964. He later served as Secretary of Education for Sao Paulo. His theories developed pedagogy of the oppressed, 1970, advocating for critical pedagogy, and then his claim to fame was transforming literacy education into a tool for empowerment. His career as an educational psychologist. Early career in education, Freire earned a law degree from the University of Recife in 1943, but soon shifted his focus to education and psychology. He worked as a teacher and education administrator in Brazil, focusing on adult literacy and educational reform. The university employment, Freire held positions at the University of Recife, where he developed his innovative ideas about education and literacy. In Excel, 1964 to 1970. After the Brazilian military coup, he taught and worked at various universities, including Harvard University and the University of Geneva. Theory development. Freire is best known for his critical pedagogy and the development of the problem-posing method of education, as opposed to traditional, lecture-based, banking education. His theories emphasize the role of education in liberating oppressed populations, focusing on dialogue, critical thinking, and the relationship between educator and learner. His work was influenced by existentialism, Marxism, and liberation theology. To continue, his claim to fame, Freire's most famous work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, 1970, outlines his theories as a tool for social change. It is one of the most widely cited educational texts in the world. His literacy campaigns in Brazil and other countries demonstrated the practical application of his methods, empowering marginalized communities to participate fully in society. The global impact. Freire's ideals spread globally, influencing education systems in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. He collaborated with organizations like UNESCO and the World Council of Churches. His legacy, Freire's methods remain influential in education, social justice movements, in fields such as adult education and community development. He is celebrated for advocating that education should be a practice of freedom, enabling learners to question, challenge, and transform their realities. Freire's career as an educational psychologist and theories amplifies a commitment to using education as a means for sociality, transformation, equity, and empowerment. Here are some influential figures on Paul theories. One of them is John Dewey. John Dewey's influence on experimental and democratic education. Another one is Karl Marx. Karl Marx inspired Freire's focus on oppression and liberation. And then Brazilian intellectuals worked alongside peers in education reform. So here's a picture of John Dewey and some of his beliefs and influences on the democratic education. And then in the middle is Karl Marx and his oppression on liberation. He was big on the change it. And then you see Paulo Freire, so how they all connected. Here are some quotes from John Dewey, Karl Marx, and Paulo Freire. One of the ones that mostly stuck out to me was the John Dewey. John Dewey quote was, "Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself." And that quote has stuck on me ever since I have done this research. And I'm going to instill this into my students and some of my colleagues because I honestly believe that education is life itself. But I'm going to read it again. Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. So he reflect on belief in experimental and democratic education. Karl Marx, his quote was, "The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, it is to change it." His highlights focus on action and transformation, central to Freire's pedagogies. And then Paulo Freire's is conceptualization starts with dialogue. His method of fostering critical awareness and liberation through conversation and reflection. His later life to death. After returning to Brazil in 1980, following years of exile, Freire became a prominent figure in Brazil education and politics. He joined the Workers' Party, Partido dos Trabalhadores, and served as the Secretary of Education for Sao Paulo from 1989 to 1991. In this role, he implemented progressive education reforms aligned with his theory of critical pedagogy. Freire continued writing and lecturing globally, gaining recognition and honors for his contributions to education and social justice. His death. Paulo Freire passed away on May 2nd, 1997 in Sao Paulo, Brazil at the age of 75. He died of heart failure, leaving behind a legacy of transformative education that continues to inspire educators, activists, and theorists worldwide. His legacy, Freire's works, remains influential, particularly through his seminal book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. His ideas are celebrated annually on World Paulo Freire's Day, September the 19th, in many educational institutions. That's the day that he was born. Here's a visual that highlights the Paulo Freire's key achievements in his later life, including his return to Brazil, his role as a Secretary of Education, and his UNESCO Prize and his global recognition. The current teachers' practice. Empowering students. Teachers inspired by Freire's view their role as facilitators of empowerment, encouraging students to take ownership of their learning and become active citizens. Building relationships. Freire emphasizes on dialogue, underscores the importance of teacher-student relationships built on respect, trust, and mutual learning. Culturally responsive teaching. His work encourages teachers to consider students' cultural background, lived experiences when designing lessons, ensuring that education is relevant and accessible to all. Application in modern movements. Freire's ideals influence movements for social justice, equity, and inclusion in education such as anti-race teaching, restorative practice, and trauma-informed education. Why teachers should be familiar with Freire's work. Equity and social justice. Understanding theories equips teachers to address systematic inequalities in education and advocate for fair opportunities for all students. The student engagement, his interactive and dialogic methods help create classrooms where students are actively engaged rather than passively absorbing information. Preparing global citizens, theories focus on critical thinking and social awareness prepares students to navigate and influence in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. And lastly, his innovation in education. Theory's rejection of traditional hierarchical technique teaching models inspires educators to experiment with new participatory methods that prioritize students' voice. And then here is my biography of some of the stuff that I have found. So going back to the overall thing, his theory is best known for the critical pedagogy and development of problem-posing methods of education as opposed to traditional lecture-based banking education. Liberating oppressed populations, focusing on dialogue, critical thinking, and relationship between educators and learners. Thank you for watching.